be very helpful. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, have you ever received a poor evaluation? Be honest. You know you have. And if you say you've never received one, then you're a liar, putting it bluntly. The most important thing about evaluations, and think back to the first evaluation that you got, whether it was from your mom, your dad, your principal, your school teacher, your employer. If you received a real bad evaluation or poor evaluation, you wanted to quit. You wanted you wanted to tell your employer, take this job and shove it. You wanted to tell your mom or your dad, I know I'm better than what you told me I am. That's the problem with evaluations. Evaluations are critical. There are evaluations that, I'm sorry, but they tear people down. That is what the biggest problem is. You hear good things about yourself when you hear your evaluation. But when you hear the word B-U-T, you know that there's something bad coming along. And that's wrong. Do you realize that if you received a good evaluation and a helpful evaluation, that your job performance would improve by 95%? And this is not my saying, this is statisticals that have come out, the studies that said when people receive good evaluations with helpful suggestions, the employee's work product improves by 95%. I know when people first meet me, their first thought is he on medication? And then after they get to know me, they will say, shouldn't he be on medication? That's the way an evaluation is. Evaluation is like medicine. Sometimes you get good medicine, sometimes you get bad medicine. And it also depends on how you take that medicine. Well, it's the same way with an evaluation. I believe Toastmasters has come up with an excellent way to give an evaluation. Now, I know many of you have heard of a 360 evaluation where you're evaluated and then you evaluate yourself. Those are detrimental evaluations because those evaluations, they expect you to tear yourself down. And when you don't tear yourself down, the evaluator will help you along and they will tear you down. I've seen it happen over and over again. And you say, why did I waste the time giving myself an evaluation, pointing out my good stuff when my employer just tore me down? That's not what an evaluation is about. An evaluation is to improve yourself and others to help you improve yourself. The most important thing in evaluation that I have found that really does an excellent job is called a sandwich evaluation. And folks, I don't like peanut butter and jelly in case you should decide to send me a sandwich. I would prefer an olive sandwich, maybe a vegetarian chicken sandwich with Brussels sprouts and bean sprouts and lettuce. Getting back to the sandwich evaluation, as Toastmasters recommends, you have good things that you tell the people, and then you have things to improve. You notice I said improve, not to criticize. Remember, let's go back to your first evaluation that you received. Your boss told you you did all this great stuff. Then he criticized you, and I don't care how you put it, he criticized you about, well, you could do this better and you didn't do this as well. He tore you down. That is a no-no if you want great import, great improvement on your performance, on your job, and even with speaking. The sandwich evaluation, and I think it's a good name. I haven't thought of another name other than the sandwich performance evaluation, is you have good, and then you have things to tell the person that, to me, is a suggestion. Because when you look, and I'm going to go back to the evaluation that you might have received as an employee, the critical evaluation, they told you what you needed to improve on, and it was an or else. You improve on this or else. You're going to be fired. You're going to be let go. You improve on this or you get. Do you want to hear that all the time? No. It just makes you want to sometimes slap your evaluator silly. Maybe you didn't do it physically, but you might have done it emotionally. Excuse me. And what did you learn from that evaluation that you received from your boss or from someone else, your mom or your student or your teacher or your principal? Whatever the case, what did you really learn? You learned nothing except resentment. You learned that you did not want another evaluation from that person. Fast forward to now about the sandwich evaluation. You have to listen. You really do. You have to listen to what the person has done. And when you're doing an evaluation on the job performance, you have to watch what he has done. I've seen many evaluations from my boss. My boss was in band. Now, how in the world could he see what I did as an employee? Come on, folks. There's no way he could see what he'd done. There's no way that he could see how I interacted with the customer. That is not a true evaluation. And when you're giving a speech, you need to look at that person. You need to see, is he really telling you something that you might learn, that you might be able to use? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe it'll be a year from now. But the most important thing is when you get to the point that you're going to make those suggestions for the improvements, relay to that person. These are helpful hints, they're helpful suggestions, and you don't have to take them. Now, if you're a good employee, if you're a good speaker, if you want to become a better speaker, you will definitely take those suggestions and say, I'm not going to use it today. I'm not going to use it tomorrow. But the thing is, I can use it later on. We have a tendency to hear, and it goes in one ear and out the other ear, out the other ear. For some reason, it's not showing up, out the other ear, and we forget about it. When you're receiving an evaluation, especially in Toastmasters, go ahead and write it down. Something that I've done today is I've asked our Toastmaster to record this because I've given you a lot of information that you'll want to go back to and say, what did he say? Remember, our memory span is only about 10 seconds long. And looking at the expressions on your face, you've already forgotten what I've said at the beginning of the speech. That's why It's important when you're getting evaluation, you write it down. When you're giving an evaluation, that's just as important. I look at the person I'm evaluating. I look at their eyes. I look at their facial expression. If they're supposed to have hand gestures, write that down too, because sometimes the words are so important you forget what other things you're supposed to write down. Again, suggestions for improving. In Toastmasters, we do not criticize. And I've been to many evaluation contests. I've been to many speeches, and I've given many evaluations. Are my evaluations perfect? No, by no means are they perfect. That's something else to keep in mind. You learn by giving evaluations. You learn by doing. Will I ever have the perfect evaluation to give to a speaker? Who knows? It may not be today. It may not be tomorrow. But the most important thing that I remember about giving evaluation is, did my evaluation sound critical? Did the words of suggestions to improve the speech, were they really helpful? Or was I trying to just make myself look good? Keep that in mind. When you're doing evaluation, you're not supposed to make yourself look good. You're supposed to make that other person feel better about himself and about the suggestions that you gave him, that he will be a better person, that he will be a better speaker, that he will improve on things. And you who are in the supervisory positions, keep this in mind. I remember many things about what I have said to people. But those speakers, have they remembered what I have told them? When I teach hunter's ed, as an example, the one thing the students come back to me and they say, Jim, I always remember what a safety is. A safety is a mechanical device that can and will fail. In the 6-day class, that's the most important thing I want them to get out of that class. And for a student to come back to me 10, 15 years later and say that to me, my point has come across. It's the same way with an evaluation. It's really important that they take something away that they can use for their next speech, for the next speech. That's the helpful part of that sandwich evaluation. You tell them what they might want to improve on, then praise them at the end. Praise them at the end. And here's what's really interesting. You say to me, well, Jim, if you give them good stuff at the very beginning of the speech, and then you give them helpful hints in the middle, and then you praise them at the end, what if they forget the helpful things that you gave to them in the middle of the sandwich or the middle of the evaluation? I have found out by giving that type of evaluation, people do remember the helpful hints that you gave them. And number one is what I have told many people, beginners, mediocre, expert speakers. I have told them, I said, the one thing I've always learned and may be helpful and is always useful is to record your speech, because there's so many things that you do not hear. Remember, I said things go in one ear and come out the other? That's what recording is all about. And the good thing about it is, with today's technology, you, you can do it by video. And again, praising at the end. the sandwich evaluation, I believe, is the best type of evaluation that you praise, helpful hints to improve, and then praise again. Because if you criticize throughout the whole evaluation, you'll never be asked to give an evaluation. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jim. And let me figure out how to turn the recording off.